Well, welcome everybody to a webinar today titled From Good to Great, Decoding the Trait that Define Outstanding MSL with Dr. Michael Pellegrino. So Dr. Pellegrino, he is a director at U.S. Medical Science Liaison at Merck Therapeutic North America. He majored in biology at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and he received his PhD in neuroscience at Volume Institute for Advanced Biomedical Research in Portland, Oregon, where he worked on molecular signaling and neuronal differentiation. Michael then accepted a postdoc fellowship at Oregon Health and Science University to study the neurotrophin and cytokine signaling required for peripheral neuron regeneration. He always wanted to get closer to patients' care in translational medicine and joined Merck in 2014 as an MSL for Northeast base in New York City. And in addition to completing the rigorous internal training program conducted by Merck Medical Affairs, he also holds a board-certified medical affairs specialist (BCMAS) certificate from Accreditation Council for Medical Affairs or ACMA. And he's now reside in Nashville, Tennessee, where he holds his current position at Merck Therapeutic. And beside his career professions, he has a passion for the beautiful outdoor science and for solutions, live music, teaching, and not so competitive softball and museum wandering in the New York Yankee and exploring faraway lands and spoiling his niece and nephew. With that, welcome, Michael.
Thanks very much for having me, Melody. Really excited to be here.
Yeah. So before we start, since we have a lot of aspiring MSL and also MSL in this webinar, so just to start off, what is the role MSL for you, and how do you know this was the right career path for you?
Sure. Well, so right now I hold the position as director of the medical science liaison team for the US. Now, my company is based in Germany, but we have a big presence in North America. Our team right now is a team of 7 MSLs throughout the country. And so they are the people that I've hired and developed. And so I direct them through the medical affairs department. So that's kind of how our team is. Our team's actually kind of unique. Most pharma companies has very specialized MSL teams. Our MSL team is unique in the fact that they cover everything. So they meet with payers, they'll meet with federal accounts, they'll meet with key accounts, academic institution, private practices. They do it all. So our team wears a lot of different hats, which keeps them really busy, but also keeps the job very, very interesting. In terms of your second question, how did I know this role was right for me? Well, I guess I could start with a little bit of a story. I was a research scientist in Portland, Oregon, doing my postdoc. And I realized, I'm going to be honest, I was in the neuroscience field. And if you're writing grants, as some of you probably know, unless you're in the top 10 or 5%, you're not probably getting many awarded grants. You could write a really good grant, beat 80 or 90% of the competition, but you may not get many awards. So although I thought I was a very solid scientist, fairly well published, I knew that maybe academic research was not for me. And I realized also that, the things that I was working on, they may have been decades before they actually affected a person in real life, those types of therapies. And I thought about what the pharmaceutical industry was doing, and I thought that maybe I could get a little bit closer to patient care, maybe not be on the front lines of developing therapies, but helping bring those therapies to patients that really needed them. And so I was lucky enough to get an opportunity when I lived in Portland to manage the Northeast Territory without any experience. Sold my house, sold my car, put all of my life in 8 boxes, and I moved to New York City from Portland, Oregon. And that's how I started my career in 2014. And from then, it's been a fast and furious learning curve, but it's been a really, really great ride. Merck Therapeutics is a family-owned company. They've been fantastically good to me, helping me develop into the director I am today.
That's really wonderful, and a very cool story to bring you here today. Out of curiosity, in your role as a director, what are some qualities and some traits that you see in people that make them those outstanding MSLs?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Jan. So I would say, I think everybody knows this is a medical science position, right? So you're gonna need some scientific literacy. People on our team, we have people with PhDs. I know there's some MSLs who actually have MDs. We also have a number of PharmDs who that's a different type of scientific literacy. Actually, one of our folks actually has an MBA and a PharmD. So I would say one of the things you have to have is scientific literacy. Okay. The other thing that I think is a prerequisite, which if you ever interview for one of these positions, you're going to be tested on, is your presentation skills. So not only are you going to be able to have to present science in a one-on-one atmosphere, but also in a group presentation atmosphere, because really that's what the job entails. So those are really the two prerequisites, I would say: scientific literacy and presentation skills. Now, what makes an MSL and the people who really get opportunities are the people who have those soft skills. Everyone thinks of soft skills differently. If I was going to boil it down, soft skills are people who are fun to be around, who are able to communicate effectively, and who are people who, if you got stuck in an elevator with for a couple hours, it would not be terrible. Those are the people that really get opportunities as an MSL. And I feel like some of those skills come naturally to some, but I also feel like those skills can be developed if you put yourself out there in a lot of social situations.
That's awesome. And a really great answer. What are some common mistakes you feel MSLs are making when they're trying to do their job and or maybe get a job?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jen. So just a little background on our team. Everyone on our team, cells that I have, which by the way, they are most talented people in the industry. They are amazing, not just because they were hired by me and my team, but they are absolutely amazing. But none of them had any experience. All of them came from different backgrounds, none of them pharma, none of them biotech. They were really the people that we were looking for were super smart, super driven, and super dependable. And so the biggest challenge when people like that, who are the people personally that I would want to work for us, they don't understand the industry. So you're coming from, let's say my background as an academic scientist. The currency in academics, as you guys know, is publications. That's your currency. That's how you're judged. Getting grants, getting pubs. That's what so you're sharing information of what you've discovered and what you know. Now, when you're in the pharmaceutical industry, that's very different, because although you're providing therapies to patients, it is a business. And it's run as a business. Now, medical affairs is not compensated and they don't promote, but it's still a business that is run. And so you have to learn the business aspect, what you can and cannot do. This is a highly regulated industry. There are things you can say. There are things you cannot say. There are things that you can say reactively, but only reactively. And it takes a little bit of time to really learn those things. Just as simple as having expenses and submitting your expense report can take some time. My first boss told me that I was not going to be useful for a year or a year and a half. That's what she told me. And I was like, what do you mean I'm not going to be useful? Like, I'm this smart person. I know what, I'm going to hit this job, running. And she was like, trust me, we're going to invest in you, but you're not going to be useful for about a year and a half. And she was absolutely right. So many missteps, just trying to learn the industry, trying to get a handle on my territory. I think that's one thing that I would tell people. You have to be very patient with yourself. And as a manager, I feel like I have to be very patient with the people that are joining our team, because it does take a little bit of time to get used to the industry, to get used to working with people in other departments, to get used to, just learning the science. As many of you on this call, you can learn any science if you're given the time. But to learn that science takes time. To be able to be that storyteller to your KOLs and to communicate those stories about your drugs and your data, that takes time. Even if you are a very talented scientist, that takes time. So I guess my answer to your question, Jan, would be patience. You have to be very patient with yourself in learning the industry, learning the material, and just learning how to live the life of an MSL, which I think everyone knows is a field-based life. You're talking to people who are really smart all the time, people who are the top in their industry, but also can be a little bit lonely because you don't go to an office every day. When you're not on the road, you're in your home office. You may have a lot of video calls and things like that, but it is a little bit of a different lifestyle. I think in today's day and age, the newer generation, I don't know what we call them now, Gen Z, Gen Y, I'm too old for that, but I think you guys are a little bit more comfortable with working from home and things like that. People like myself, maybe, working from home I appreciate, but getting out and actually communicating with people on a face-to-face basis is really the way you build those relationships, which are crucial to being successful in these types of roles.
Well, this is very cool insight. And like building on like, you talk about how really great about like your team with MSL, like they came from like various background without like, and like a previous MSL experience. So like
Mhm.
in your visions, what make a great MSL team?
What makes a great MSL team? So that's, I think the key part of your question is that you said team. So, we have team calls weekly and our team gets together. Now they're virtual because everyone lives throughout the country. But it really is a team atmosphere. Our team, although everyone has their individual territories to manage, we do a lot of educational trainings with our technology. MSLs have to cover for one another. If some people are on vacation, another person might have to go out of territory to cover. And so when we're covering congresses, there is so much that goes into covering a congress. For instance, we have a neurology congress in a couple of weeks in Denver. We have to cover the scientific sessions. We have to cover the booth for medical affairs. We have to set up meetings for leadership to get our KOLs in front of our leadership. We have to do all these things. We have to make sure we know all the data that all the other companies are presenting in our space. So we have to know all the posters. This takes a lot of group work, and it has nothing to do with just managing your territory. And so our team really takes it as a team approach. People will volunteer for things. So I would say what I really am so blessed with in terms of our team is people who are dependable, who actually care about um, the reputation of our MSL team. They want the entire team to do well, and the people who are part of our team root for each other. And now there's competition in pharma within departments. There's no doubt about it. Obviously within companies, but our team roots for one another, and those are the type of people that I've been very, very lucky to be able to work with, because they're people who root for each other and try to really have a team dynamic where we're all pulling for one another.
I love that. You're right. I mean, a group that works together really is a dream team, so that's great.
Right.
In your opinion, I think one of the buzzwords that you hear about an MSL being a good MSL is proactivity, in
Mhm.
terms of networking and things like that. What beyond just networking is, how can an MSL be proactive beyond just networking?
Right. So I think I talked a little bit about having people who are dependable. So this is a job where people who are all over the country, sometimes I'll do ride-alongs every week with all of them. So I'm in the field just like they are, working with them. But this is a job where you have to be motivated to be successful. If you are not motivated to be successful, I'm not going to call you to say you need to read that new published report. I'm not going to call you to see every single meeting you have scheduled for next week or how they all went. All meetings are not created equal. Sometimes our people will have 30 residents they're training in a group atmosphere. Sometimes it'll be a private practice physician who maybe is not someone that we might meet with again, but we're just kind of vetting them. So all meetings are kind of different. The people that succeed in these roles are the people that are really um, self-starters, but they're proud of their territory and they take it upon themselves to make it great. Because you have to do it on your own. I'm there to guide and to help, and I love doing it. But you really have to make that territory your own. And if you don't want to be selfish and make it great, it's not going to happen. There's so much that goes into this job that you have to be able to do on your own and be responsible. But those are the people you want. I mean, people who get these jobs are people who are very responsible, very motivated, high achievers. They don't like to fail. That's not in their DNA. Not saying that nobody, in this job you're going to fail all the time. There's going to be failure all the time, but it's something to where you want people who love to pick themselves up after they get knocked down, because this is the type of job where success is something that is not always very easy to make for yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very great. A lot of like aspiring MSL in this talk like have like submit some of the questions, and then about like how do you first like establish the relationship with KOL, or like how to identify like which KOL or like building the territory plan.
Yeah. So it's difficult. So if you get hired to a new territory, you're going to be told, okay, here are the 10 states that now you are tasked with knowing all the experts if you're in medical affairs, and the experts that are important to medical affairs, which is not the same thing as that is important to other departments in pharma. So, there's a lot of people I worked with when I was in New York City and managed that territory. They were experts in the field, but they may not have used they may not have used our product a whole bunch. And so they were experts for me. They're on podium and they were field experts, but maybe they weren't important to other departments in our company. So there is a lot of overlap, but what's important to medical affairs is different than what's important to the other departments because we're not based on sales. I'm sorry, what was, can you clarify your question again?
Oh, no, that is a very great because like people like just wondering how do they build the first
Oh, right.
relationship with KOL. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I would say when you're tasked with this new territory, there's going to be some people that the company hopefully will know. There'll be some sort of internal lists, but really your job is going to be like anything else. You're going to have to do the internet research. It's sort of like if you get really interested in one of the New York Yankees and you want to find everything about their upbringing and where they grew up, and you do your internet searches, and that can be the first step to really learning about a KOL. There are faculty pages because, let's be honest, most of the people we work with are academics. And so there's a lot of information where they trained, what they're interested in, what clinical trials they've done. These are all things that you need to do your research and do your quote unquote studying to know who you're talking to. The other part is there's a lot of people within an organization you're going to join who are going to have relationships. A warm handoff is everything. And so the relationships that people have that they can then introduce you to people, that is much more likely to start building someone that you're going to get to know than a cold email they get out of the blue from someone they don't know. So you have to remember the people that we're interested in working with are um, are people who are very, very busy. So they're teaching, they're seeing patients, they're training residents, they're training fellows. These are people who are very busy, and so you have to remember that. And so a warm handoff or an introduction from someone at your company or anyone else or even another doctor is something that can really help you start building that territory to get in front of people.
That's great. And in building these territories and being proud of these territories, do you have any tips and tricks for how an MSL makes these trusted relationships with their KOLs? And also, what can they do to be impactful in their communication with these KOLs and build a long-lasting relationship with them?
Yeah, so so you have to find a way to provide value to whoever you're speaking with. So, like I said, these are very busy people. They don't have a lot of time sometimes. If they're going to meet with you, you have to be very, very organized and detailed about what kind of value you can provide for them, whether it's training, whether it's education, whatever it is. There's a lot of things that medical affairs can provide, whether it's just discussing the scientific data that's out in the field, providing information about the products you support. All of these physicians want something different. Your job is to figure out what kind of value you can provide them. Because like I said, you get in front of them and you show up and you're just happy that you actually got a meeting, but you have nothing to offer. That might be the last meeting that you get because you're not providing value. And it's with anything in life. People aren't going to waste their time with other people that provide no value in their life. The same is here. And so I think that's the biggest thing. Also credibility. So one of the things that we do is we're very heavy based on our training before we put people in front of thought leaders. You are supposed to be the medical and scientific expert in your field, communicate that. So showing your credibility, showing that you are a peer-to-peer expert is very, very important because these people are going to be chairs of department at highly touted institutions. You have to be able to show your mettle and that you are a scientific and medical expert who can actually provide value to them.
That is a very insightful, like, all for the point, because it's it sounds like it's very, challenging to build it, just like, build a trustability and also the credibility and to show that to the KOL. So can you like, share some like real life scenario where MSL like encounter like challenges and discuss like on like just like elaborate on how an outstanding MSL would navigate and overcome those situation. Just like one.
Yeah. So I think it just all goes back to being patient with yourself, but also understanding, your job every day is to get in front of these high profile people. But you have to understand that they're very busy people. They have a personal life, they have a home life, they probably have a family. They're also involved, like I said, in patients, education. They have lots of things going on. And so you have to understand that meeting you is not the only thing on their mind. If you're even on their mind at all, that's a good thing. And so I think you have to be very patient with getting to meet these people. Sometimes I think it's easy to take it personally. So-and-so, I've sent them 3 emails over the last 3 months and they never get back to me, and you take it personally. That's not the way you're going to succeed in a position like this. You have to be very patient, understand that when a situation presents itself for you to provide value, that you're ready to do it. For instance, maybe your company is going in a new direction to a new indication or a new drug, and you know that this physician who you maybe haven't been able to get in front of is an expert in that field. Now, maybe you can find a way to work together. And so you can actually provide value, whether it's discussion or sharing things compliantly or advisory boards or whatever it is, speaker programs that you can get some of these experts, which maybe you find ways to work together. You have to be very patient. There was a number of physicians who are high profile in New York City who I could never get in front of for years. And then finally, I found a way at a Congress and went to see them talk, introduce myself, and then that relationship started from a simple introduction at the podium after a talk. So there's a lot of ways that you can actually get in front of people physically, which I think is the best way. If you're having trouble setting up meetings, you have to find ways to get in front of people physically. Now, you don't want to be a stalker, and it has to be professional. So I think congresses are really great ways for you, because people go there to network. So if you're there for 5 days, you can find the experts in the field that you're supposed to be tasked with meeting, and you can find ways to get in front of them. You can go to their talks. They always want to network when they're there because that's what they're there for. You can try to set up meetings that way. I mean, honestly, you can go up if you see them in the hallway or in the poster room or at one of the networking sessions. It's appropriate professionally to go up and introduce yourself. And that's what a lot of people do. And so I think finding ways to get in front of people that maybe aren't as responsive electronically, because that's always what people try first, right? You try to introduce yourself with an email and see if that works. One, it's the easiest way and it's very efficient. And sometimes that's fine. But a lot of times that's not enough. And if they don't know you, they're very, very busy. The only way to do it is to get in front of them at a Congress or a patient support group or something like that.
Great. And I think the other important part of the MSL role is kind of being this conduit for insight generation, both for the company as well as for these KOLs.
Yep.
Do you have any tips or advice on how to be good or great at generating these insights and being of value to both the company and the KOLs?
Yeah, so I think you think of it as like your friend circle, right? You're only going to tell people things that really matter to your good friends, to the people that you trust. So trustability is huge. The KOLs that you have a professional relationship have to trust you. They have to know, one, that you are a peer and that you know your stuff, but two, that you're fair and balanced. You're not just going to talk about how great your stuff is and how terrible the other competitors are. That's usually not the way it works. Usually products all have advantages and disadvantages, and they all have unique qualities, and it's your job to make sure that you communicate those unbiased. That's what medical affairs. You are the scientific, it's all about the facts and the data, and that's your job. So if they understand and they trust you that you are going to shoot them straight and not be biased and cherry pick the data and not show the real things, they're not going to trust you with any inside information. And so I think it all goes back to developing those relationships where they can trust what you're saying because they know that you're going to tell them the truth in regards to the data. And you're not going to hide things because that's not what we do. Because they're never going to meet with you again if they think you're only telling them things that are pro your company or pro your data, because that's not the way medical affairs works. You have to be unbiased and not cherry pick anything.
Yeah, thank you for those, all of the insight. Because I think one of the part that I like about being an MSL is like the ability to share the very unbiased information and like transparent information to the KOL or like the ACP. So and one of the questions she asked is for those aspiring MSL without any industrial experience, how do you get the stepping stone into the MSL role?
So how do you get an interview?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get an interview, I'm not going to lie, but there are ways to do it. So I think and this is going to sound, I think people probably understand this, but it is all about networking to try to get that initial audience with someone. And so the way I got my first job was informational interviews with people through an old friend that I hadn't seen in years, who said, "Oh, I'm in this field. I can set you up with someone just informational." Told them about myself, my background, learned about their company, and it went from there. So I think trying to connect with people on LinkedIn. So if I have time, I always try to pay it back. And so when people will contact me and say, "Hey, I'm an aspiring MSL," or "I'd love to learn about your role or how you got into it," I try to make time to do it. Now, as everyone has a lot of things going on, but I've talked to many people about the role, kind of what we're talking about here, and to give them kind of ideas on how to maybe break into that role. It is difficult, but I think, for instance, say you have a neuroscience or molecular biology background. If you're really interested in trying to meet people from the companies that might have roles that are suited for you, going to these congresses. Now, I never did this, but all the companies are there with their booths. The medical affairs have their own booths. You could go up and have business cards made and go introduce yourself and try to just see who are the hiring managers, see if they're looking to expand, all sorts of things but all the people that you need to know would be there. Now, that is a very aggressive way to do it, but if you're looking to break into a role and to meet people, I've definitely had people come up to our medical affairs booth and say, I'm a student, but I'm interested in this. Tell me about the role. It's happened many, many times. I think that's the way you have to meet people. You have to network. And so, honestly, something like this that people are attending and building a group. It's all about, to get that initial step, getting a foot in the door is really about, hopefully someone. You're gonna have a much more likelihood of getting a foot in the door, unless your resume is exactly suited to what they're looking for, which, I think people are looking for certain skills, maybe not certain knowledge bases these days. But it's really about trying to find your way to connect with people, networking. That's really what it's all about. And that's where you're gonna all of a sudden find your way into that interview. And then it's your job to show your value to the interview team, show them that you have scientific literacy, show them that you're able to present, show them that you have those soft skills. And if they got trapped with you in an elevator, it wouldn't be the worst experience of their life. So those are the things that, once you get that opportunity, then it's your job, to try to take advantage of it. So, and I will say, if you work with recruiters, which is another way that you can do this, I know a lot of people, if you work with a recruiter, they can get you opportunities. They know people. I would advise to work with as many recruiters as you can, because they're also busy. Sometimes they just find the perfect thing for your background. So for a product or for a team that's expanding, and that's just the way it is. So I think working with recruiters, finding ways to get in front of these companies, and connecting online. There's a lot of people who, I'd like to think, will talk to you if you ask for 30 minutes of their time during the week. People like myself, I love to talk to aspiring people, which is why I'm talking to everyone today. So I love to talk to people about it. I feel like medical affairs is such a great way to help provide patients with the care that they need. And you still get to use your scientific acumen. So it's just a fantastic way to spend your days.
It sounds like when you put your team together, you took a chance on people who didn't have experience. Can
It's
you
true.
talk a little bit to that, and maybe talk about some of the decisions you took to make that choice?
Yeah.
And also how, as MSL, as candidates with no MSL experience, how we can sell ourselves when we're up against all these people with years of experience.
Yeah, no. Well, for me, like I said, I was looking for people who, I talk about this elevator idea, but it's true. I'm going to be working very closely with whoever is going to be on our team, and so are the other people in medical affairs. I work more closely with the people on our team than I see my parents or I see my niece and nephew. That we're talking weekly, sometimes daily, with all these people. I want to work with people that I respect, that I like to be around, that I feel like I can be myself around, and they can be themselves around me. I want that comfort and that respect. And honestly, Jan, it's hard to really. You have to get in front of people. So the way we do our interview process, there's a number of virtual calls, but before we're going to hire anybody, we have them come in. speak with numerous people that I value their opinion, and really spend the day with us. And that's how we do it. And they're going to have to present and show their presentation skills, all the prerequisites I talked about before. But it really comes down to a feeling: is this someone who, one, I think is going to take pride in their territory? Two, are they going to work hard, because this is going to be a difficult transition if they haven't been in the pharmaceutical industry? Or do they really want this job? Because they're going to work hard, but I'm going to work just as hard training them and getting them to the level that they need to be for Mertz Therapeutics. So all these things have to go in, and you have to trust your gut that you're going to get really good people. I feel like the people that we've hired would be successful in so many different endeavors just because they work hard, they're smart, they're fun, they're people you want to be around. They're helpful, they're dependable, they're empathetic. They're just fantastic people. Like I said, I am so grateful that our team is so fantastic. So it's just a feeling. And I will say, when I was hiring people, some people in the company got a little frustrated because it took me some time to find the people that I really liked. Because I found some great people that wasn't perfect for what I wanted, and luckily I held out to get the perfect 7. So.
Well, that is very interesting to hear, like, that story. And it's like, it's like a light for the tunnel for like us, like we trying to find to break into the role without any industry. And like, it's like job searching and like getting to interviews very, very like challenging. And so like let's moving on to one of the point that we had. So in your opinion, like we are in like the digital era, like where's technology are developing and stuff like that. So in your opinion, like what is like the most significant change or trend that you observe in the medical affairs field over the past decade?
Yeah. So a couple things. I mean, number one, I think it's very obvious. I almost feel silly for saying it, but artificial intelligence is something that's coming. There's a lot of medical affairs platforms that people are developing that are going to be used in the field by a number of companies. There's a number of organizations that I've already had interviews with, just talking about their technology and how it's going to make medical affairs in the field a little bit more efficient for people's time. I think that's something that people are going to have to be aware of. Chat GPT and being able to mine data on the spot that you're looking for. So for instance, if you're looking for some very specific safety data of a clinical trial that you don't remember exactly, but someone asked you, AI is going to be able to help you to find that on the spot so you can get the information to the KOL who's interested in it. Something as simple as that. We can't remember everything. There's a lot of data to remember, and sometimes we just don't know the answer or we're not sure. And so I think AI is going to help people almost have an encyclopedia at their fingertips at all times. The other thing that I would say I've noticed, I've been in the industry, and it's been 10 years, my God. I would say that when I first joined, medical affairs, we weren't a luxury, but we kind of were. We were a support team. And so we were brought in if there were medical questions. Now I feel like we're more of a core department where the KOLs and the HCPs, the residents, the fellows, they expect companies to have scientific experts and people who can help them learn their products and train on their products available. And so the medical science liaison role is not a secret anymore. Medical affairs is not a secret anymore. And I think many physicians expect to have that sort of support and value from these companies. So if they're using drugs, now the sales reps that companies have are very talented, but they are only allowed to work within a certain framework that's the label designated by the FDA. Medical affairs reactively is able to have a little bit more leeway and talk about things because they are the scientific experts. So compliantly, they're allowed to provide a little bit more color and scientific data than any other department is reactively when people are interested in that. And so it's something that I feel, instead of being, when I first joined, I felt more like a support network. Now we are a core proactive department that is a lot more is expected of us. A lot more is expected of what we do and what we provide, which is great. I think people want to take on more responsibility and have a more meaningful approach to what you do every day. And I feel like that's the biggest change that I saw 10 years ago. That, and with the AI revolution, our MSL team has a book club and we had an AI book club that we all read. I don't think people really liked it. I picked it. I got to pick a different book next time. But we're trying to get up to speed on all the AI and how it is in healthcare, and there's a lot going on there. So I'd say those are the two things: just the importance of medical affairs, and then the transition to AI. It's coming, and I think people need to be aware of it.
We have a question from Norward, and clarify if I'm mistaking the question wrong, but I think the question is about interactions and how can we rely on our sales team to help build rapport with KOL.
Sales and medical affairs work separately. So for the most part, aside from maybe a brief introduction, and that's really, we're not in the offices together. That's really not how we do things. So at least at our company, I don't know client, but we work separately out in the field.
Like the time is about closing, but I just want to add, looking back, is any decision or strategy you implement that you believe significantly contribute to your success in the medical affair field?
Yeah, I think I've talked about it quite a bit, but since I did have a team and everyone who's come through our training program was new to pharma, not just new to MSL, but new to medical affairs, new to pharma, new to everything, we have developed an extensive internal training program at MERDS, which is probably longer than most companies. We don't let people out in front of people by themselves for multiple months. So the internal training that we do in-house, all the MSLs help train our new people. So we do internal training where I take the philosophy that it takes a village. And so everyone helps train all the new hires within our own group. So we train ourselves, and that's how we do it. I think that is something that if it takes a little bit more time to get someone who's confident when they actually get that opportunity to step in front of the department chair at Vanderbilt or the department chair at NYU and actually show that they're a peer and be confident, know their stuff, as opposed to maybe getting out a couple of months early and being unsure and not sure how to handle that meeting. I think training is really the strategy, at least from my standpoint, that I think is really, really important. I want our people to feel as prepared as they possibly can before they go into a meeting. I want them to feel confident. I want them to be excited. I don't want them to go into a meeting feeling worried that they're not ready. And so obviously at some point, everyone gets a little bit nervous depending on the meeting, depending on the topics that you're ready to discuss. But I think the training is something that I think is a really great strategy, making sure people are ready before you, quote unquote, throw them out into the wild.
We seem to have one more question from the audience. It's from Matthew, and he says, he's curious to know how MSL teams deal with disagreements about what to do with KOL insights. How do teams deal with conflict about how to execute a strategy? For example, who to meet with, how to interpret clinical data, and what type of subject matter to cover?
Ooh, great question. So, these are my favorite conversations that we have. At the core, I feel like anyone who wants to be an MSL is a scientist at core, whether their background is a scientist or not. They're people who likes to find answers, look at the data, interpret the data, and come up with messaging and storytelling based on that data. We have discussions. I don't call them arguments. We have very passionate discussions amongst our team when we have differences of opinion of what things mean. I think in clinical science, it's a little more straightforward than it might be in basic science. Interpreting data from a molecular biology assay versus actual clinical science can be a little bit different, but we have differences of opinion all the time. I think it always comes back to having a team that's respectful, understands that it's not personal, and we can have differences of opinion, we can have debate. And if you can't have that, you really have nothing. You don't want a bunch of people who all agree with one another. That's not going to get you anywhere. So we have differences of opinion. I like to tell our team we're semi-democratic. We vote on stuff, but at the end of the day, I got to make the decision whether it's really something we're going to do. But I always want input into our team and how we do things. And everyone is very comfortable sharing their opinions. Nobody feels like if an opinion is different, people feel slighted. And so that's just the way that we run our team. So everyone knows that their opinion is going to be heard and people are going to assess it. And it's all about respecting one another and being able to come to a decision together. And if it's a decision that maybe you don't feel like is the best way, that's just the way it is. I mean, decisions have to be made, and everyone understands that. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, we love having scientific debate and talking about the data. It's fantastic, especially other people's data. We love that too.
That's really great. Let's do one last question and then wrap things up.
All right.
Just as your final leaving words for any aspiring MSL, what do you have to say that's going to get them that job?
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question, Jan. So I would say one, again, I mean, I talked about networking and trying to stay patient with that. You never know when somebody's going to give you an opportunity. It's hard not to get discouraged. I think everybody knows if you're looking for a job, you're going to send in 50 resumes and you might get 2 people to even read them. That's just the way it is. You can't get discouraged. You really have to continue every day to understand that it's a numbers game at some point, but also to continue to try to get in front of people like something like this, try to connect with people, try to talk to people. You never know who's going to connect you with the right person and where you're going to get your opportunity. You really don't. And I feel like also doing it when you already have a position, so you're not, you have something to do, but you can spend time looking for something that you might be a little bit more interested in is also good. And just being positive. If you do get an opportunity, I think it's really important to, one, be prepared. So know things about the company, know things about their products. Obviously, do all those things that you would do for any interview, but be yourself. I know it sounds silly, but try not to be too nervous about it. Be yourself, be confident, and be the, remember that these are people who they want you to do well in these interviews. Hiring people takes a lot of time and effort. When I have somebody come in, I want them to knock it out of the park. I'm rooting for them. Everyone is. So it's not something where you feel like people, don't want, everyone there is rooting for you. And so I think remembering that when you do get the opportunity, everyone's rooting for you, be yourself. And at the end of the day, if you do get a position, you want a position where you can be yourself and you really believe in that company culture. Because from what I understand, they're all a little bit different. And so you really need to find the one that's right for you. So I would say, as a final message, be patient. Don't give up. If you get knocked down, get back up, because those are the people who are eventually get an opportunity.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Michael, and all the insight. It was very, very helpful and was a really great conversation. And I really think that our audience enjoyed it. And thank you all for joining us for another month of Ask and Tell with MSLs. I hope you had a great time learning about the role.
Thanks very much.